Welcome back to another Gridiron Gaming podcast. I mean, look, this man really needs no introduction, but I am going to say this. Before you say anything, I'm going to go out here, way out on the limb. You're probably going to be mad at me, but I'm going to say the greatest middle linebacker to ever play the game of football, Mr. Mike Singletary. Mike, thanks for hanging out with me today.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'm very humble with that, but I appreciate it.
And you know, look, this is coming from, I don't admit this too often, but from a Cleveland boy growing up a Cleveland Browns fan. It was kind of force-fed into you in those days. But secretly watching the Chicago Bears, and of course, I'd be remiss without mentioning the '85 Bears and that time, but. And it's funny that as I heard Ray talking to you previously in one of your podcasts about what it meant to him, and he kind of stole my thunder a little bit. But I have to tell you too about what it meant to me to see that team, and you specifically, who captivated my mind at that time. I mean, I was 8th or 9th grade coming up at that time, but watching just your intensity and learning how you played the game, how you approached the game, it molded me as an athlete. It literally was a huge part of who I became. My years at Michigan State, and of course with Jacksonville and Cincinnati, but it all starts back with those roots and watching those Bears teams, and you specifically. And I mentioned your eyes. Right? Because I just remember how that captivated me as a young man and just kind of pulled me into you and captivated me to you. So anyways, thank you for hanging out with me. Enjoying it anyway. Enough compliments for a lifetime.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you're at your very first eSports tournament, I take it. What do you think of this craziness, the eSports world?
You know what? I think it's really cool. I think being here and seeing all of the athletes and the wives, the girlfriends, and it's a great gathering of people that some of them may not be physical athletes on the field, but they're athletes in their mentality, and I think that's very cool.
Yeah, it just amazes me that because they're included now in college athletic departments, the esports teams. It's all part of it. Guys our age always have that kind of first impression, like trying to figure it out, like because we remember like Pong, right?
Oh yeah.
And then calling them an athlete, but in a way, I get it. I mean, there is definitely, as I sat down earlier and played some Madden and got my butt whooped, there's definitely a skill.
Oh yeah.
Right? So, and I think specifically interesting, and of course, you're a member of the board of the retired Pro Football Retired Players Association, and building this unique bridge for players to meet with this younger generation, and I want to share something with you and get your thoughts on it. And I had this talk with Jack Youngblood earlier when I was coming in. Young man who's about 10 years old. I met and just greeted him at the door as he was coming in, and he told me about how excited he was to meet Jack Youngblood and Mike Singletary. Okay, and I said, "Young man, what do you know about Jack Youngblood and Mike Singletary?" And then he went out and regurgitated all of your stats.
Wow.
This 10-year-old went out and literally consumed everything about your careers, and he was telling me about tackles for a loss and sacks and all the things that you've done. And I went, bingo, that's it. A new generation. How does that make you feel?
You know what? It's pretty fascinating when the younger generation have what technology has done is given them the capacity to look at history in another way. Some of the footage that they're able to get a hold of, some of the information that they're able to get a hold of and watch and witness. No one has to sit there and try to tell them, this is what happened, this is how he did it, this is how they played. They can they have access to go back and really see it themselves. and sort of kind of channel it through their minds in the way they want to see it and the way they see greatness. Right. So I think that's the beauty of technology. That's the thing that I really, really appreciate about technology.
And the one thing that strikes me too is, hindsight is always 20/20, right? So they're consuming history, from this very unique vantage point, of just things that have happened and taken place during, how it is when you're in the midst of it, right?
Oh yeah.
But I think consuming your careers and just who you guys are now as men in a whole different way than they could have even when you were playing.
Right.
It fascinates me. And like I said, just watching this young man who just went out, heard you guys were going to be here, and consumed as much content, it seemed, that he could get his hands on. It really opened my eyes to one of the things that kind of near and dear to me, which is finding a way to not only bridge this gap, but find a way to help all retired players, transition. That's the big buzzword right now. But helping them just bridge this gap and find their way after the game is done with us, right?
Well, it's so interesting when you think about it. As an athlete, you aspire to play the game and be great. And so you play the game, you work your tail off to try and be as good as you can possibly be, and then after it's over, there's another game. And the second game is more difficult than the first. Now you have to try and have people understand how you did what you did and how you got to that point, but now looking at you now, they see you in a different way. You're trying to figure it out again. I'm trying to adjust to this thing called life. And it's so interesting to me now the younger generation can kind of come back and for a moment not focus on themselves so much, but really focus on, hey, you know what? Maybe I can help you redefine who you are. Maybe I can help you get back on that yellow brick road that you're on and try to complete your journey. To me, that's some of what technology is able to do. It's able to take you somewhere, but at the same time, it's able to redirect you so fast. And that's the thing that I really appreciate about it, equipping young people to be able to equip them with questions that they can ask. The future or the previous generation in a way that they never would have been able to even formulate a question.
With young teenagers in my house, it's just a different world. They've never been unconnected to this world, but from the technology standpoint that you referenced, like having the answers to the world supposedly at your fingertips, right? And just so much information. Can you imagine? I mean, remember what we had to do when we had to do something in school, right? It was going to the library. It was a big event. Yeah. But the technology is just changing so quickly, it's making my head spin, right? At times,
Absolutely.
right?
It is. I think one of the things that, to me, is when I look at the previous generation and I look at the present generation, it's the previous generation really had their hands on it. They had to get their hands in it, and they had to learn all the rules of life and what have you. And now the generation today can just touch a button and kind of find the answers, and everything's at their fingertips. And I think what's really neat is, the e-games or technology can kind of take you out of this space and take you somewhere else, whereas the previous generation couldn't go anywhere else. This was reality.
Yeah.
And I think that what's really cool that I hope that happens is the E-generation and the previous generation are able to bridge that gap where the E-generation doesn't have to just collect data, and they have to remember to create their own dream. They have to create their own world and their own reality. And I think the previous generation can help them do that.
It's awesome. I mean, the insightful words. So, in going back, I'm gonna take this back a little bit. Okay. I know for me as a player, I have things that are, I can't even imagine how many times people mention the 85 Bears to you in your lifetime, right? But I think all of us as players have a favorite moment. And I'll give you a quick example of mine, that a moment that maybe nobody else knows about. So you may have to dig for this one back in the history of your mind. So I had, it was the fourth game of my rookie year, and we were on a nationally televised game against Green Bay Packers, and I'm playing against Reggie White.
Hello.
Yeah, and everybody has this very same impression. Like, oh, crap, kid. It's amazing you're still alive. Right? So you knew, like, the hump move's coming. You're going to be embarrassed in front of your friends and family. You're hanging on for dear life. And to make it worse, the week before, he actually played against a rookie, and I won't name his name, but he played for the Bears at the time. It was another rookie tackle.
Wow.
And Reggie had like 4 or 5 sacks in the game. And so we're going into my game, the next game, and like the whole world's going, oh my gosh, Reggie's going to have the single season sack record in 2 games. Right? I'm like, okay, thanks for the credit. I was a high draft pick. I can play a little bit of this game. I get it, but I know he's Reggie. So anyways, I'm, deep down inside, the psyche going into this game was just unbelievable. And thank goodness I had some great vets around me and some great coaches to bring me through this alive, or else I wouldn't have made it. But so anyways, after the game's over, I end up only giving up 1 sack to Reggie White. I chalked it up as a win. I did get the hump move. I got launched like 10 yards. Like I'm 6'7", like 318. Nobody's launching me, right? Well, Reggie did, of course. But after the game, and nobody else would have seen this. It's before social media and everything else. And I'm jogging into our corner of the stadium. Packers are going off to theirs. And all of a sudden, I see big number 92, like sprinting across the field. Not jogging, not sauntering, but he was like running at a good clip, right? I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Reggie's going to come over here and fight me because I cursed at him, right? I took the Lord's name in vain or something, right? I broke one of the 3 commandments that Reggie had. And so anyways, he finally gets over there, and he goes, kid, you're going to be all right. He goes, great job, great game. Smacked me on my backside and ran across the field. Nobody in the whole world would have seen that moment. It was after the game, we were clearing off the field, but it was my absolute favorite football memory. Wow. I had been knighted. It was like, I was going to be okay. I was going to make it.
That's very cool.
So what is your personal, your fondest football memory? Maybe nobody knows too much about.
Well, I would have to say that my fondest football memory that nobody would really know about. This was the transition between being a young player in the NFL and believing that I could be a really good player, but I was just having a tough time getting there, and Buddy Ryan wasn't helping at all. And my rookie year, I had a conversation with one of the coaches. He was the DB coach. His name was Coach Jim LaRue. And I was very discouraged one day, and I was sitting in the room, and Buddy, I just had a long day with him, and I was just sitting in the room by myself and just kind of staring at the wall. And Jim LaRue must have saw me and I'm sure he noticed that the day it was and how rough it was. And he followed me in the room. He acted like he was looking for something, but he came in the room and he said, look, I want you to know something. He said, you're working really hard, and I know you're frustrated. But he said, I just want to tell you, if you keep doing what you're doing, one day the light is going to come on. Now, at that moment, I got to tell you, I had no idea what that meant, and it was one of the stupidest things I'd ever heard at that time.
Yeah.
But shortly after that, maybe another month or so, I was watching film, and I was just watching film like a wild man. I mean, hours at a time. And I'm sitting and I'm staring at it, and all of a sudden, it just seemed like something clicked, and I saw it. I began to see it. Oh man, wait a minute. Let me run this back. And I was, whoa, look at this. Look at this. Whoa, man, every time he does, look at this. And the light came on, and it was like I was jumping around the house, and I for the first time I saw it, and boom, it changed everything for me. But had I not heard that, I never would have known that the light had come on in my career.
Wow. I mean, it's an amazing story, and it's I think a lot of us get those kind of conversations from coaches always coming at the hardest time.
Yeah.
I mean, I was convinced when I got there at first, when I was a rookie, and then the vets reported, that week later or whatever, that I had to learn how to play football all over again. I was like, I know I can play this thing, but like I have so much to learn, right? So much. But had something similar happen, so I get that in that moment where it goes, oh, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense now. It's an amazing story, and I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
That personal story.
Thank you.
That's incredible. So just to wrap this up, brother, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It's amazing having you out here to this event here in Dallas, man. I really appreciate the time, man.
I thank you very much.